I find glass as a material to be inspiring because of the fragility of the material, the preciousness of the material. I like the floppiness, the fluidity of the material. I like that it's a common, everyday material, but it's also an aristocratic and unusual material that historically would be only owned by, the upper echelon of society. I'm kind of using the rich history of the decorative arts and the craft tradition to inform a larger conceptual understanding of what I'm doing. My name is Beth Lipman, and I'm an artist who lives and works in Sheboygan Falls, Wisconsin. I make work that is primarily based in exploring material culture with a specific focus on still life tradition. I work in a range of materials. Most of the sculptural work that I make has been made in glass. I also do two-dimensional work such as photography, video, and lately I've been also working in metal, cast iron and brass. The still life tradition is really fascinating. It formally was titled in the early 1600s, and it was a manifestation of the Dutch Golden Era. So it was the first time in history that people started painting inanimate objects that were front and center and a priority in the composition. It was the first time in history that food became a commodity and not just consumed for survival also. So it's a really fascinating history, and I find that the parallels between the history of still life and the contemporary age in which we're living is really very compelling and a good place to kind of root my practice. So all of these objects are symbolic. They tell us about the culture that we're living in, the community that we're living in, and specifically about the individuals that own them as well. You'll find functional objects within my compositions, and they would be functional. You could pick up a chalice or you could pick up a goblet and actually use it. The functionality is removed by the fact that it's in a conceptual work of art, referring to the function of the object as opposed to actually being functional. The sculptures themselves are three-dimensional drawings, and I basically amass a large vocabulary of objects. I'll just keep making components until I have a certain amount that I know will be enough to begin a composition, and then I start to, probably much like what you do at home, move things around, see what looks good. There's a relationship between every object, not just the objects themselves, but I'm looking at line, I'm looking at form, I'm looking at mass or feeling mass, weight, texture. And then I'll just start kind of creating towards that particular vision. I consider myself a sculptor in the material, so I make a lot of different objects that are not necessarily rooted in the time frame that we're in. So you won't find an iPhone, for instance, in my compositions, but you will find rounds of cheese and plates, and you'll find forks and knives. A lot of it is tied to the idea of a banquet, but you'll also find domestic objects generally. Also, in addition to that, I make all of the prehistoric components, the ancient flora, out of glass as well. So you'll find cycads, mosses, lichens. This is very recently what I've been working on. The work ranges wildly in scale. My most recent sculptures that are quite small in cast iron and brass are a shoebox size or smaller. And then they can range in size up to 26 to 30 feet long. The glass sculptures, primarily entire room installations, room environments. There's sculptures in the round, and they include objects that are on the floor as well as on top of the table. Sometimes they include objects that are on the wall as well as the floor. I use a table a lot because it kind of roots me in this practice of still life and composing. So the work doesn't just reside on a tabletop. I use all different kinds of glassworking techniques when I'm making the glass sculptures. Pretty much any technique I can get my hands on. So I'll take sheet glass and I'll cut it apart and put it into a kiln and fuse it together, or I'll slump it over molds in a kiln. I'll gather molten glass out of a furnace and push and pat it around, blow a bubble into it. I'll cut, grind, and polish with my cold working equipment that is similar to stone carving equipment, actually, in my cold shop. I use glue that's made for glass, so am a jack of all trades, master of none. I'm really okay if things break. It's a part of the process. Sometimes I deliberately break things because the material inherently will at some point always break. I consider that a part of the life cycle of the work. The sculptures take anywhere from 2 months to the better part of 1.5 years, depending upon the size. It's that capturing a moment in time. For me, it's more important that each moment that I'm creating, I'm capturing that moment in time in the practice, which is a part of still life tradition, as opposed to trying to represent something.
We are so proud and honored to be hosting once and again Still Lifes by Beth Lipman, which was organized by the Montgomery Museum of Fine Arts, went to the Hunter in Tennessee, and its final venue here is the Jewish Museum of Milwaukee. So it's an exclusive opportunity to get a chance to see this unique body of work. I think when you first walk into the gallery, you can be distracted by the beauty. And then once you get a chance to come in and really look at the layers and her choice of objects and the way that she has placed the composition, and certainly when you start to read some of her artist statement and you get to know a little bit about Beth, you understand that there are many levels of meaning to her installations. While her pieces have kind of a ghostly, ephemeral, fleeting feeling to them because of the ability to look through them, you do see common objects that you might see on any table. We have goblets, we have stemware, we have food, we have platters, and oftentimes she will take one particular element and enlarge it, and that becomes a proxy for the human figure, the human being. So it's almost the human being that is surrounded by these objects, creating a visual vocabulary with her objects. It is not just physically layered, literally layered, symbolically layered, but all of those things working together to communicate Beth's message and the themes that are important to her.
What I am grateful for is that I can come into my studio every day and continue to explore in this tradition and make my work.